Hey, it's February 4th, 2021. It's like I've never made any real videos at all describing the heart surgeries and the other medical procedures and the other incidences that happened when I was at the Legacy Emmanuel Hospital after my botched heart surgery. Um, and the whole thing, I could, from beginning to end, I could make a video and just try to chronicle it on a video. But it would do no good now because it's so long ago that I could never use it for anything. But the thing that I have the biggest issue with, and I'm going to just specifically talk about this one thing, was that stent surgery that I had, that I was wide awake through the whole thing. And we're going almost 5 years. It'll be, it was like 4 years ago. And I still think about that almost every single day. I go through it. It just pops into my head. And it's like my whole body just tenses up and I cringe and my stomach gets sick. And when I lay at night in bed, I don't sleep well, and it's one of the things that pops into my head no less than a half a dozen times almost every night. And I relive it. Like post-traumatic stress disorder or flashbacks, like, ooh, tripping, or Vietnam. And it's really difficult sometimes because it just seems so real. But I know it isn't, and it's over and done with, but I relive it over and over. And I could never understand why I could never find a lawyer to take a malpractice suit for it. What happened, if you don't know, which is I had to go in and have a stent surgery at the Legacy Emmanuel Hospital. And I fasted all the first, like the day before, and I went into the appointment, and they assigned you to a room, and you wait for them to come and get you, to take you down to the procedure. Well, I was there all day. I got there like 8:30 in the morning, and I hadn't eaten. I was going crazy. I wanted to get out of there. The hospital's just giving me the creeps to begin with. And I was really getting agitated because they had one nurse that was in there that was just an absolute fucking bitch. She was very, very rough. I mean, she was grab you by the arm. And the first time I saw her, it just was not going to be friends. I never once saw her stand up. She leaned against something the whole time. She'd be standing there, or she'd have her arms draped over something, or have her back against something, or her elbows leaning against something. It was like, or she'd be sitting down. And all these other people, they work just as hard as she does, and she just leaned on everything, like just lazy. And you'd ask her something, and she'd give you like one of those cut your eyes to, just, she was just a bitch. And but she was very, very rough, and they wanted to hook me up to an IV to get ready for when the team gets there to pick me up. And she couldn't find a vein as she sat there in a chair next to my bed trying to find it. And she dug and dug and dug, and I mean, she was killing me. And I made her stop. I said, just stop, have someone else try. She goes, I'll just try one more time. And I swear to God, she went like down around under the bone and came up from the other side. And I went like, screamed. I was like, I hadn't screamed like that since I was a 12-year-old girl. But she was just a fucking bitch. And so time went on, and now we're getting into like 7:30, 8 o'clock, almost 9 o'clock at night. And I says, listen, I haven't eaten all day. Obviously, they're not coming. And then she comes back with the news. They'll have to see you in the morning. And I says, no, I'm leaving. I was going home. I says, unplug this thing and just let me out of here. I'll come back tomorrow if you don't want me to, but I'm going home. I've got to eat something and I'm going home. And she just had a huge stink about it. So a couple are running back and forths, and she comes in and says, the team has agreed to do one more procedure tonight. They'll come over here. They're all off for the night, but they'll come all over here because we're set up for it. Plus, it's on their way home or whatever her deal was. I'm like, okay. So the team arrives, and really like fast, boom, boom, boom. Let's whip through. Let's get this done. Down the hallways, down the corridors, and into the operating room. And they're all like back and forth laughing and inside jokes and just like it was very a frenzy activity. Now I don't know what happened. Maybe they backed the gurney up and it went over the tube that the anesthesia was in, or what, or if they just didn't give me one. I don't know what the deal was. I kind of tend to think, after thinking about it for so long, that it was possible that the bed got the stretcher or the gurney may have gotten rolled over on top of a tube or something, or unplugged the machine or something. And I'm telling them, well, when am I going to get knocked out? I'm like, joking and laughing. And they says, oh, you should be out now. You're probably, any minute. And I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there waiting, they're back and forth, and I'm watching, and they were standing on both sides of me. And when the lady came, the technician came, and she had this fucking thing, it was like a knitting needle attached to this long wire. And she comes up, I'm like, don't put that in me. I'm wide awake. And they're like, no, you're not. You're on anesthesia. We gave it to you. I says, I'm wide awake. I'm telling you, I'm wide awake. And I'm fighting with them. I'm yelling at them. I'm sitting up, and I tell them I'm wide awake. And they, no, you're not. You don't remember any of this tomorrow. Literally, I heard one of them say that to me towards the end. Well, the good thing is you won't remember any of this tomorrow. And I remember every bit of it. I remember every single bit of it. However, after it was over and I was being wheeled out the door, I got about halfway down the hallway, and that's the last thing I remember. I swear, I think that the clip was pinched or something. I don't know what. But I didn't get the anesthesia till after the procedure. So when I arrived up on the floor, like I would be. But the whole ordeal of it, I mean, they held me down. I'm telling them not to give this up, don't do this, I'm wide awake, don't do this. And they're like, oh yeah, don't worry. And they literally were holding me down, not just, they didn't stop. When you say stop, don't do this, that means stop, don't do this. And they held me down. There's got to be a videotape of this. There has to be. And I'm sure there is. That it's a modern operating room. There has got to be a videotape of this. But they came at me and came at me. They held me down and held my legs, and she jabbed me in the groin with this thing. Like I said, it was like a knitting needle, and they start threading, in you, and then they start threading through this wire with the camera or whatever, the stent on it. And I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. I can feel it going every inch that they pushed it. It felt like it was burning like a bullet. Just burning, going right through my veins, up and up. And the guy even said to me, oh, can you feel that? And I'm like, yeah, I can feel every bit of it. He goes, good. Don't worry, you won't remember any of this tomorrow. That was when he said that. And I was clenched so tight and holding on so hard to the side of the gurney. There's like, my hands were just like clenched, trying not to scream and flail. And I could feel that thing coming, every single inch of it. And then, okay, now we're done. And then I felt them pull the whole thing out. And they didn't do it really, really that slowly. It just came down. and it was just such a relief to get it out. However, because I was not knocked out, and because I wasn't under any anesthesia, and because I was kicking and flailing, which should have been just a minor little poke right in, very routine, ended up tearing a muscle, it ended up tearing the vein of the artery, and I ended up in the hospital for like 3 days while they tried to control the bleeding because I was on such strong blood thinners. I was on Brilinta and something else, and they couldn't stop the bleeding. So I had to have blood, and I had to have all this other crap for basically an outpatient procedure. If I had been knocked out, I could have had it done and could have gone home. But yeah, you're asleep, you're knocked out. It's like, no, I'm wide awake. So I wake up the next morning, and well, whatever time it was, maybe that it had to have been the next morning, and I'm in another hospital bed in another hospital room. And that was when I was under observation and was told not to move. I had to not move. I had to lay there, almost not move, immobile completely for another 48 hours before they finally, at my insistence, just said, please, just let me go home. But it's, that's that one incident. And like I said, I think about it every day, every single day. And it took me forever to figure out, I think, why I couldn't get a lawyer. Part of it was my own fault. But this is what it looked like right after I had it done, and I went back to work. I was off work for about a week, and when I finally went back to work, I took this picture in the bathroom at work because they had better lighting. And that's all hemorrhaging above my groin and then down into my thigh, and the rest of my thigh was also covered, and so was all my junk. And then you can see it's over onto the next thigh as well, but not as bad. This was after it started healing, and it already looked better. It looked way worse than this to begin with. When I went in for another procedure about 3 weeks after this, the surgeon looked at that and canceled the surgery. So, and that's another video. But that's what it looked like. The groin pictures, I had to cover that up, but like I said, everything was that purple color, everything. And because I was on such heavy blood thinners. But when this happened, I was still going back to work. It was soon I was like really depressed because I was still under the impression by what they had told me that because of my heart condition and the other factors that will be in another video, that I was basically on death's doorstep. I was waiting to keel over any minute. People are going, oh, Chris, he's so strong, what a hero, and all this other shit. Because, and I played the whole thing down, but I thought I was dying. I really did. I thought I was dying. I was on my way out, and by what the doctors had told me, every indication was that I probably had 3 to 6 months to live when I had my first surgery. That's all I was expecting, was 3 to 6 months when I came out of there the first time. And so depressed about that, I'm at work at a job I fucking hated. I hated I hated my customers. I hated the commute on the max. I hated the location. I liked the people I worked with, but I hated my life. And I was on all this medication that they had me on. I was taking like 11 pills, and all of it made me so sick and so lethargic and had no energy, and I had aches and pains. It was giving me headaches. So all of this, I just kind of retreated out and backed away from it. I said, I've got plenty of time, because I fully intended to sue them. Well, I started making phone calls, and a few weeks down the line, after things had changed, I had other appointments. And one of the things that made me not sue right away was that when I first went to get my my first admitted into that hospital, you have to sign a piece of paper that asks you, are you or have you been in a malpractice suit? And if you check off yes, you know pretty much they're going to give you the door and say, have a nice day, tip the hat and let you go. You know, have a good one. But I knew that I was going to need another doctor in another hospital because I planned to sue these people. But I was waiting to get sick enough based on what they had told me. I was, like I said, I was expected to only live 3 to 6 months. And it never happened, and then it never happened, and then it never happened. I was going to go to a different hospital and then sue this one. Once I signed the paper with the new hospital, if they asked, are you in a malpractice suit? So I could honestly check off no. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's a main reason why I didn't sue them right away. Another reason is, my own fault. I just started smoking weed like it was all that was left in the world to do, and I quit drinking, and I had actually quit smoking cigarettes for about 8 or 9 months, I think. And I was high. I was like really fucking high all the time. So I had like, oh yeah, I'll do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow never came. And then I did start calling around, and I called probably 30 places or more locally and some 800 numbers that were national. And the ones that got back to me, because not many of them did, thanked me and said, we can't take the case. It's not our field, or whatever they'd say. So I got discouraged and I stopped looking. And the flashbacks still continue, and I still think about it every day, and I still nausea at my stomach, and I still have a limp, and I still can't cross my leg. But I let it go for a while. And then I decided to do it again and pursue it. And I finally, after about another dozen inquiries, found a person that would take the case. And when I gave him the date of the incident, he goes, he's sorry. According to the law, the statute of limitations has expired. So I missed it. I think it was by about a month. And nobody would take it to begin with, so I just said fuck it and gave up. And that's why I didn't sue over what they did to me with that stent operation when I was wide awake. And now you know the story of that and why I didn't sue, or why nothing ever became of it. I got the pictures, I've got the memories, I just don't have the payout. And I know it's hard for other people to understand why I didn't sue right away, but now you know. I wanted to be able to sign a paper saying that I didn't have a lawsuit or haven't had one at the next hospital. I was waiting to go to the next hospital. And like I said, I was baked all the time and just probably binge watching Family Feud. Anyways. But that's that. And I do feel better getting it off my chest, and also now that it's on a record. And look, it's me. I'm saying it. Because there's nothing here I wouldn't say in court. I could even elaborate a whole lot more. But that will be a different video. I'll start at the beginning on that video about how I got to the hospital and what happened. And how things went. And the circumstances of, where we were living and stuff at the time. I just want to have it on a visual record. Even if it's only for my own amusement. Well, have a good day. Oh yeah, and also, Uh, that hospital, Legacy Emmanuel, is a very, very powerful hospital. They're very, very in with the city. They have tons and tons of favors back and forth between the city. It's very corrupt. Emmanuel, that hospital, that where I was, is in the one where they bought the property. They had the city come down and condemn the neighborhood, block by block, not just house by house, and they offered the people pennies on the dollar for their homes. And this was in the black neighborhood. Uh, and they came through. There was a little business, a major intersection with black-owned businesses and hotels and restaurants and boarding houses. I think a movie theater and a couple of grocery stores and hat shops and barber shops and stuff. It was in the black neighborhood because Portland is very segregated at the time. But they were the ones that came in and bought the place out and had everybody thrown out and gave them pennies on the dollar if they got anything at all for their houses, so that the hospital could build a parking garage and use a lot of it for parking lots and build a new building like over to one side of it with plans for future use. And they got away with it, and all the lawsuits against them have all failed. Every single time someone's come up, and this has been going on with them since the 1960s. Lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit at that hospital. Each one gets crushed, one after the next. They never lose. It's a very powerful hospital. It's very corrupt. But that's another reason why I couldn't get a lawyer. Of all the inquiries that I did make, why so many of them said no. I'm sure that they saw that, that hospital, and said no. And of course, they're not going to tell me that. I sound paranoid saying it, but it makes a lot of sense also, especially with local attorneys. Anyways, my little postscript. It's crazy, it's like how people get away with shit like that. I would have loved to have sued them and have some money. Have at least some sort of compensation for it. But it's too late now, and I will never go there again, so there can't be another chance of them to fucking up. If I ever, plop down on the floor at the supermarket or, flop out on the sidewalk, do not take me to Emmanuel Legacy or Good Sam. Do not, do not, do not, do not. Because I'll sign myself out as soon as I can stand. Take me to OHSU. It's further from where I live, but, it's like the good hospital, and it's where I've just started getting a file there. I've gone there now once for a visit, and gets hooked up with the heart department, but I've never really gone in there in person to have anything done yet because of COVID. Everything's been done virtually and over the phone. What a world. Yeah, my heart doctor was over the phone. He'll hold the phone next to my chest. Anyways, things are good. I just need to get some shit off my chest and have it on a permanent record. Have a good one.